Okay, to start with the revision of the DSE level biology chapter 1. So before everything is talking about, so ask yourself what you are doing in the school. So focus on what you have learned instead of the things that you don't know. Okay, it is the best way to score a high mark and also to set your goal both in terms of the learning and also in the extracurricular activities. And also you should adjust your attitudes and mindset. You adopt a growth mindset that you can do better instead of you have a fixed access. Okay. And then use your time and resources wisely. I noticed that so many students are wasting their time, and time is your most valuable resources. So for chapter 1, we're talking about 7 characteristics of organisms. So here are the list of the 7 characteristics: reproduction, growth, nutrition, respiration, response to stimulus, movement, and also excretions. So all organisms should have all these characters. And you may notice that some of them is a little bit difficult to notice. Let's say for the term growth, okay? For us human, you may notice that from young boy to an adult, there is a growth. But how about plants? Plants can also grow. So remember, it's a definition based on organism, not just human. And also a term respiration, you should pay a good attention to it because there is a closely related term breathing, and you should be able to distinguish their difference. And here are the common steps in the scientific methods. Okay, first of all, we have an observation, and then we set a question. Later on, we build an hypothesis, and then probably we will make some predictions, and then we are going to test the hypothesis and analyze the data. Finally, we will draw a conclusion. So we will go over a number of examples and about the history of science development, and you should always have a mindset that you can fit in this model into various history. And for the scientific method, this is a very important concept, the concept of the control groups. Remember, for the control group, it has an identical setup as the experimental setup, except the fact that it has a factor under the investigation is absent. So let's say the case is about the presence of lights, okay? So one group is without lights and other group is with lights. So lights without or with this, the presence of light is the independent variable because it's the factor that you want to study. So what is the possible dependent variable? Let's say in the case of the presence of lights, okay? So for the factors that we can measure, maybe whether there is growth or no growth or even a death. So this is the dependent variable. These are the factors that you can measure, but you are not adjust it directly. And for the controlled variable in the example, you may notice that maybe the soil condition and also the water amount is the controlled variable. That is the factors that you will keep constant in both setups. And then for the scientific reports that in biology, we will still invite our students to have a understanding about the whole procedure is that we would like to write a report so that people knows what we are doing and also others can repeat our investigations. So here are the common elements in the report: aims, introduction, materials and methods, result, discussion, and conclusion. These 6 parts you should bear in mind because later on in your SBA exam, you're going to use this framework in order to write a good report. And then for the points to note in the report, you should always use passive voice whenever possible, and you should use a proper format to present your data, like a table or figures, and you should interpret your result because the result is objective, like 10 or 20, but the interpretation can be subjective. What's the meaning of 10 and 20? That is called the interpretation. And you should state the improvements or further study at the end of your report. But remember, don't just write some human errors because that is pretty meaningless, okay? Because I am careless or she is careless, that doesn't make any sense to me, okay? And for the nature of science, here are some features of the nature of science. Reasonable skepticism. So we don't just agree with others, even though I'm your teacher. We just don't agree with it naturally unless people are giving me evidence and support. And we should always have some creativity in mind and also imaginations. And we need to design the controls carefully. And the fourth point is an ongoing inquiry because for the development of science or every knowledge, it will never end. Okay. And then for the final two part is about the cultural and social limitations, and also there are technological limitations limiting the development of science. And in chapter 2, you will encounter that the development of the cell theory is depends on the development of the light microscopes. Here is an extract of the HKEA document about the DSE exam, and I suggest everyone should have a close look on it because it clearly tells you that what you are expected to able to do. Okay, so remember, go to Google and then look for this document. Okay, so this is the end of the chapter 1 revision.